everyone, Platter Sam. Welcome to part 4 of our Hasegawa 124 Lancia O37 video build. So, we've got a long video to get through today, so I'm not going to sit here and waffle on like I normally do. As you'll know, this is part of our rally group build over on ISM Facebook, so you can head over there and join in should you wish. All the links in the description down below to find the Facebook page and the International Scam Modeler group build page as well. So head on over there, have a look at our calendar, and if you want to take part in any of the builds, feel free to join in. So today we're going to deal with the engine and all the running gear, and hopefully by the end of it get our cockpit in there and our wheels. This is a lot of work. This has taken me over a week to film. You do the watch count. 7 odd hours, nearly 8 hours of footage to trawl through. So we're just going to progress. It's a long video today, so grab yourself a cup of tea, put your feet up, have a bit of a relax, and watch me wreck a model. Hopefully I won't. But yeah, let's jump straight in and let's get cracking with the build. Right then, we're going to start by getting all our parts off the sprues for the engine. We've got our Tamiya side cutters there. So what I like to do is deal with one section at a time. Sub-assemblies are the way to go. So I'm going to cut all the parts off for the engine, start to clean those up. Any parts that need gluing together will get glued together in preparation for mounting for primer. So we've got our ultimate sanders here, using a combination of the sponges and the customizables. And then some parts are going to need gluing. We use our Tamiya extra thin to glue these parts together, give them a clamp, let them dry overnight. Then we can come back the next day and sand all the seams smooth. What we'll do then, once we've got the engine components done, put those to one side. Then we'll cut off every single part off the sprues and clean them all up, like I say, in preparation for primer. So this sanding took forever. It took about 4 hours over a couple of days to do a lot of fiddly sanding. I wasn't a live show at the time, so I probably wasn't fully paying attention to what I was doing, chatting away. But it's a lot of work to do, but well worth doing in one go, because it's done then, it's out of the way, and we can focus on getting them painted. So parts like the exhaust manifolds here, we're going to dry fit it into the engine block. Then we're going to assemble it how we see, then glue it, leave it in place for a bit. Once we're happy it's dry, we can take it out, and we're going to use our RS 2.3mm shank drill bits in our Tamiya pin vise and drill out the exhaust end. So have a look at it, pick a size that's appropriate. Make sure you're not going to drill right through, and just widen any holes that you think may need widening to put the parts in place, because we don't want to force this, because it's been glued together. We don't want to be forcing anything to the holes, because it'll open the seam back up. And then we can use our pin vise and drill bit to open up our exhausts. We've got a customizable thinny here that's been it's been cut into a thinny to get all the seams dealt with on the end of the part. So there's a lot of cleanup on this. Thankfully not a lot on the chassis. Onto the suspension now. We're going to use our Tamiya extra thin trick. So we load the brush up, pop it on the springs where they are. They have seam lines running right through the middle. So you could sit there with a knife picking at it, or you could sand it and pick at it. For me, this is the quickest and simplest way. Put a hot glue on, such as Tamiya extra thin. Let it melt the plastic. Load up the brush and just keep brushing over it. And eventually you'll brush away that seam and leave a perfect spring shape behind. It's a nice simple trick. Works really well. It's a lot quicker than sanding. You'll get a much better finish. And it's a lot easier as well. As you can see, chilly day. It's very rare you'll see me wear anything on my sleeves. But I had my jumper on today because it was rather cold. A little bit chilly in the UK. And a day with the jumper was called for. So yeah, you don't see it very often. But there you go. There's my arms covered. So like I say, just keep working over the springs with the Tamiya extra thin. It will dissolve the seam, and you'll be left with a, well, pretty much perfect part. Now some ejector pin marks on some of the parts. Luckily they are raised, so they're a lot easier to deal with because we can just sand them smooth. You can just about make them out there. I've sanded them down already a little bit. There we go, there's one. We've got a 220 sanding stick. Quite aggressive, but we want to get rid of these quite quick. There's loads of material to remove, so it's a case of just going over, removing it as you go, then come in with successively less and less abrasive sticks till we get to the buffer, and then we have a flawless finish ready for primer. So again, preparation is key. And like I said, my goal this year is to video build everything I build. I've never done it before. Always got a little bit worn out doing it. But what I'm finding is building things, it makes me take a bit longer on a build. Probably adds about a good week and a half to a build for me. And I find myself taking a bit more time to do things like this, where normally I think, oh, you're not going to see that. I'll pop it in. I'm taking a bit more pride in my work and trying to make the best of what I've got. So that is the plan. So we're in the booth now. We've got all the parts mounted up. We've got our Ultimate Black primer. We've got 0.35 needle with 24 psi. And we're going to put down 2 or 3 thin coats, building up as we go. The first coat, pop it on nice and thin. Don't let it pool or collect, because you can have issues with it separating. Make sure all the parts are free from fingerprints and any contaminants. Give it a wipe over with some airbrush cleaner if you're not, totally confident it is clean. We just put a coat on, put it to one side to dry, and then come back and add our later coats as they go. As you can see, we've got plenty of parts to prime. A good hour or so in the spray booth here priming parts. We're not going to show all that because it's immensely boring. But as you can see, as we leave it, you can see the centre part there, the chassis, already starting to dry. And always remember on smaller parts, be careful. It's a lot easier to flood. I know how much I can push this paint. You can put it on thicker than you think. You can put the black on thicker than the grey, and you put the grey thicker than the white. That's the way I look at it. So the black's probably the most forgiving of them all. But you do need high pressure. You need 20 plus psi. I think 25 is a sweet spot. I picked 24 because there's a mark on my compressor for me to easily see it. But you can spray it upwards to 30 psi. So I've got Tamiya LP paint here. So this is the metallic grey, I think it is, which is, off the top of my head, LP61. So within this, with the normal lacquer thinner from Tamiya, we're through the apex at about 18 psi. We're laying down coats. This is to do our brake calipers. We have PE for the discs, so the quickest and easiest way on this is just to spray the discs the colour they're going to be, because the PE will replicate our disc colour later. So 2 or 3 coats on each one. We're using the same colour on our exhausts as well. To make life a little easier, as long as the parts aren't right next to each other, I'll often use the same colour. A, to save mucking around mixing more paint, and B, just to make life a little bit easier. Now we've got some TS17. This is the rattle can from Tamiya. It's been decanted, off-gassed, thinned with a little bit of the Tamiya lacquer thinner. About 10% lacquer thinner, 15% lacquer thinner. And we're through the apex again at about 18 psi. Now I did make a mistake today and used my 0.35 needle apex from my metallics. I don't usually do that. I normally keep a separate airbrush from metallics with a 0.2 needle set in it, but a bit of loss of concentration, and I picked up the wrong airbrush. But as you can see, everything's been perfectly primed. It's been left overnight. There was a good week's work in this video to get to the finishing stage at the end. A lot of prep, a lot of cleanup. So, like I say, I definitely find the video build slow me down a little bit, and I think it's making a bit of difference to my builds. Now, looking for colours. These, a lot of people take the mickey, but spoons, pre-sprayed with the colours, are the perfect reference. So basically, over the years, as I've sprayed a colour, decanted the paint, test sprayed it, whatever, I spray it on the spoon and keep it. It's written on the other side what it is, how it was thinned. And I can just grab the spoons and have a quick reference. I've got them for metallics, I've got them for solid colours, and it's such a handy reference to look at. So if you ever paint a car in a colour you've never used before, have a spoon to one side, prime them up ready, let them dry, and then spray it while you're spraying the rest of your parts. And then forevermore, you've always got a reference to pick up and look and think, yeah, that colour's good, that one's not so good. And as we've done here, we've picked our gold, which was TS21 off the top of my head. Gold, because the top of the rocker covers on these are a goldy colour. So again, off-gassed, decanted, thinned about 10-15% with lacquer thinner. Not with retarder, just a lacquer thinner. And we're through the apex, 18 psi, couple of coats, job done. We now have, now this is going to catch me out, I need to find the paint. LP54 dark iron. On my reference pictures, the actual silencer or muffler box on the back is a different colour to the exhaust pipes. So I chose my colour, and whether it's right or not, I don't know. I just went for an opposing colour, and I think it looked alright. So the wheels, I love the wheels on these cars. They're nothing special, I just think they look great. These have been primed UMP Black Primer, left to dry overnight, and we've got Tamiya AS12 now. And we're going to give all these a light coat. As you can see, the coverage on these paints, the TS sprays and the LPs cover absolutely phenomenal. They spray differently, they are not the same paints. To me, the AS paints need to go on wet. Sorry, the TS and AS paints need to go on wet. The LPs don't like to go on as wet. So you can push these quite a bit, but I find they need to go on wet to self-level properly to get the proper effect. But beautiful colour. It's a nice colour as AS12. LP5 now from Tamiya. We've got all our interior parts, thinned with lacquer thinner with retarder. Apex 0.35, 18 psi. You can go lower. I've been dropping it lower lately as a bit of a trial. I've got a feeling on some of this it was as low as like 12 or 14 psi. So we're trying as a bit of an experiment, and maybe we'll use that in future. But the LP5 paint, probably one of the staple go-to paints from Tamiya. Sadly, out of stock everywhere at the minute. I think we are due more in. But yeah, if you've got it, yeah, use it wisely. Don't be spilling it everywhere, because it's really hard to find at the minute. But lots and lots of parts to paint up here. So it's just a process of going through. Everything got a couple of coats. Because we're putting black on black primer, it does cover really, really fast. So you don't need as many coats. So a couple of coats on each will do the job. Now, suspension components, we've got the 3mm Tamiya tape. We've sprayed the silver for the struts. We're going to now mask those off and spray the actual shock in yellow. We're masking it off with a combination of the Tamiya 3mm, 6mm and 18mm tapes, I think it is. And we're going to subsequently mask each colour as we go. So we sprayed the silver. We're masking off the silver now. We're then going to spray the yellow for the shock absorber, and then we'll mask that. Then we're going to spray the blue for the spring in the middle. Then we're going to mask that. And then we're going to paint the black for the rest of the shock tower body, I suppose it is. And then we need to hand paint the silver tops and bottoms to the shock springs. So a lot of work to do these parts. And like I say, I'm taking my time a bit more, trying to add a bit more detail, a bit more interest to the parts. It didn't take long because there's only 2 parts and they're not really all that difficult to mask. But again, the detail you add makes a difference to the build. So a little bit boring and monotonous, but pretty much not too bad to do at all. There's all our parts painted up. We're picking up some parts now that not necessarily call out for being different colours, but anything I can put a different colour on to add a little bit of interest. So we picked some of the drive shafts, some of the engine components to do. They're all masked off camera. We also did the actual engine block itself. Wheels are nicely dry now. We've got the Tamiya black accent colour panel line wash. Give these a really good shake, and we're going to add a wash to the wheels. Like I say, these are lovely rims. They look absolutely great. They hold a wash really well, which is what I think makes a huge difference to how they look. So we're just going to apply a wash in and around every recess, every crevice, any raised areas of detail. Let it dry. Come back with a cotton bud moistened with Sansador or any mineral spirit. Remove the excess. And yeah, it adds a lot of depth to these wheels. I built this kit before in a different scheme, and it does look really, really good. So just go around all the details, just let the capillary action, say we use Tamiya extra thin, let the capillary action carry the wash round, get it all around the rim, wipe it off, and then yeah, add more. If you put a little bit too much on, dry the brush off, touch the brush to where you've applied the wash, and it will soak up excess wash. And there we go. There's all the parts that we masked off I was talking about. So we've done the engine block, the drive shaft, so on and so forth. There's our shocks. Have now been painted in yellow. And we're grabbing our Tamiya tape in our dispenser. Get these at Ultimate Modern Products. I'm detacking that on my forehead like a lunatic. And then we'll mask up the yellow. These are looking good. Just a quick check. Yeah, looking really nice. So quick mask up, and we can spray the blue for the spring. I'm not showing any of the spraying because it's literally one colour. We'll pop into spray booth for like 2 seconds, and I'll be honest, it's not really worth taking the camera with me. So a bit of careful masking each side, then we can spray the blue for the spring, and then we can mask that off and do the black, and that's the springs and the shocks done. So it's a case of cutting the tape off the UMP holder, cutting it to size, wherever you think is the appropriate size, and then carefully masking it up around the edge. Can't beat the Tamiya tapes in my opinion. I know a lot of people think, oh, it's a bit too expensive. Honestly, I don't think it is. For what it is, it works very, very well. Now, we've got some photo etch to add to the front of the car. We've got our Zuron PE shears. Careful, these things, you've got them. You catch your hand on them, you'll know about it. And I bet everyone who's got a pair has done it at some point. I've done it hundreds of times. But these work very well. Absolutely pinpoint sharp. So we've got some radiator detail to add. So 4 parts to add, front and rear, to these parts, and the fan as well. And then we've got our brake discs to add to the brake discs we sprayed earlier. So we cut it all off, we clean it all up. Before we glue it in place, we can add a wash to all the radiators, like so. And then let that dry, wipe off the excess. And all that'll do is add a little bit of depth behind the PE to make it look, maybe not look as one-dimensional. There we go, just load the brush up. And again, let the capillary reaction carry it around. Now, we've used lacquer paint. We're putting enamel on top, so we don't really get any reactions at all. Using the opposing paint and wash. Works really well. And then we'll add it to our golden rocker cover as well. Adding a wash really brings the model alive. My feeling on this is if you can add a wash to it, add the wash. It makes a huge difference. I see so many beautiful models out there and they just look a block of silver on the engine or whatever because they haven't added a wash. Seriously, if you can add a wash to it, pop a wash in it. It just adds a whole new dimension to the model. It just adds depth and interest. Just adding a wash to this rocker cover brings it alive. It highlights all the detail and just makes a huge difference. So we've now got our PE parts for our brake discs. So I'm just checking, are these handed? Are they not? We're going to test fit it on one of them. You need to clean up the fret where you've cut it off as well. You can either use a diamond file, or if you're accurate with the shears, like I'm being here, you can just use those. But get them nice and flush. We need to clean up all the parts, so we'll do all of those. Then come back and grab one of the brake discs. We've got some Deluxe Materials glue and glaze. Got our Tamiya tweezers. We're just going to align it up or drop it, stab yourself. Careful with this steel PE, it's very sharp. Pop it in place, probably add a little bit too much glue there, but the beauty of PVA is you can just wipe up the excess. Cottonwood. Wipe off the excess, like so. And there we go. PE adds a nice bit of detail there. Make sure it's fully pushed home and down. And again, wipe off any excess glue. It's a beauty using a PVA based glue. It's a lot easier to clean up than CA glue. And we can repeat that for the other side. I'll just show one being done. And we'll do the other 3 off camera. So again, once this is all dry and set, we can add a wash to it. Bring a bit of detail to it. They're not the most detailed of calipers. They are what they are. They can't really be seen through the wheels anyway. So this is kind of a fruitless task, really. If it kind of wasn't for you guys watching this, it kind of wouldn't be worth doing, to be honest, because you're never going to see it behind the wheels. You're not going to take the wheels off. Well, I won't. If you're making a dio or something, maybe you would. But for me, I'll never see these again. But for the purpose of video, you've all been asking for some PE to be used. Well, I say all, a few of you. So here we go. So again, clean up any excess. Be thorough here, because I say there's a lot of mucking around later. And there we go, there's one disc done. And off camera, they've all been done. So we've got a little bit of detail painting to do. So we've got our Vallejo model colour silver. Grab a fine Winsor Newton brush. We've got the Tamiya, not Tamiya, sorry. The UMP paint cups. Like I said, the model are silver. Straight out the bottle. This stuff brush paints absolutely fantastic. Really nice. So we're just going to detail paint these little parts. Nothing really to write home about. Just a steady hand. Take your time. And the beauty of the Vallejo model there is they're already pretty thin out the bottle. So for brush painting, they're probably the right consistency. Like I say, just be thorough and careful. The more careful you are, the less cleanup you've got to do. Again, it's a water-based paint. We're putting it over lacquer, so we can literally wipe this back off should we require. But obviously, the more careful you are now, the less cleanup you've got, and the quicker you'll get the job done. And there we go. We'll then repeat that for the other side, and that part's done. We've got the very front of the chassis to paint up as well. I'm using my Winsor Newton Zero brush here. It's probably my go-to brush. I think I am anyway. That might be a Tamiya flat brush actually. It is. That's a Tamiya flat brush. It's a HF Tamiya brush. My mistake. Like I said, this was filmed over a week. That week passes by, I forget less and less. Well, I remember less and less. I forget more and more. So wheels are dried. As you can see, that wash has had a huge amount of detail. Really brought them to life. We've got a Tamiya LP dark iron again, LP54, and we're going to just use a cocktail stick, toothpick, to add our road nut detail in there. So we just load up the cocktail stick, touch it in place, and that will give us our impression of the road wheel nuts. So repeat this all the way around. Take your time, steady hands required here. We are putting a lacquer on a lacquer here, so we need to be a bit more careful because you're kind of committed at this point. Not really showing me do this in full depth, I don't think. I normally just show one and bugger off, so I thought let's show them all today and we can see the end result. So to small things like this add a huge amount of detail. Again, I see so many car models where people haven't painted the road wheel nuts, and sometimes they are the same colour, that is right, but I think even so, just add a slightly different shade. It just adds a little bit of detail that might catch the eye, or just adds a bit more depth to the model. I think the wash does a phenomenal job on this, especially on wheels like this, where there's so much to catch the detail on. We're using the paint straight out the tub. We just shake it, turn the lid over, and that's it. Job done. Some more deluxe materials, glue and glaze here to put our rocker cover on the engine block. So we did spray this in two-tone. Just add a bit of depth between the cylinder head and the engine block. And again, once we've got it in place, it's handed, it is arrowed the right way as well. Wipe off any excess glue. Careful on using your cotton buds. These are Johnson's cotton buds. They are high quality. After a while they start to lose their thread, and you don't want to be a pillar. You can leave a bit of thread on your model because it looks awful. The exhausts we glued together earlier. Again, all painted up, dried now. Popping it in place. Looks good to me. We then glue it. Chuck a little bit of glue and glaze in there. To be honest, it holds itself in there pretty well, so it doesn't need anything stronger than that to glue it in place. And then once that's in, we can add another panel line wash to the engine itself. same as before. Follow all the raised and recessed details. And to be honest, I fancied adding a little bit of dirt here and there. So I've literally brushed it over the entire engine, and then we come back later and removed quite a lot of it, leaving some behind to add what looks a bit of like spilled or wear and tear or dirt, spilled oil, fuel, whatever. Just add a bit more depth to it. Now, the rear gearbox. I've made a mistake here, which I figure out in about 2 minutes, by adding the drive shafts. They're glued in place. We don't want them in place yet because you need to have them off to get them onto the chassis. So we're going to take them off in a minute. Luckily they just stay glued on, so I can literally kind of snap them back off. But we'll get our rear silencer in place there. Then we can get the rest of our exhaust pipes in place. Careful with the glue, be careful with your fingers. If you get a little bit of excess glue, just wipe it off. And slide it in place, get everything lined up. Let it dry. And there we go, there's our engine block assembled. So, like I said, I wanted to add a bit of detail to this, so I thought let's add some HT leads, some ignition leads. And I saw a couple of pictures of the engine showing some hose connectors and a bit more wiring as such. So I thought we'll add that as well. I've got some very, very fine drill bits here. I've no idea what size they are. They are the finest I have, because I've lost their sizes and where they go because I've lost a few. Tamiya optivisors coming out. We've got some highly detailed work. We've got a Tamiya pin vise. You can't really see what I'm doing, unfortunately, but I'm literally drilling out the centre of the rocket cover where the ignition leads will connect to the spark plugs. So we're just drilling a hole right in the centre of each part. They are clearly defined on top. You can see them there. There's 4 of them. This being a 4-cylinder car. And there we go, just go around them all until we're happy it's done. So we've got a whole box of wiring to sort through in a minute. Pick our wires. I think we're going to go with black on this. And then we've got a distributor cap as well, which we'll need drilling out, which is this part here, which is a little bit more fiddly. And I figure out in about 2 seconds we're going to need a slightly finer drill bit. So we're going to go to our printed circuit board drill bits. As you can see, these are suffering the casualties of war because we are missing several that have snapped. They do snap very easy. Any lateral movement, because they're carbide tipped, they do snap. So here we go. It's the 4-hole distributor cap. Just line it up. Don't apply lots of pressure. Just literally let the drill bit do the work. You can get these circuit board drill bits from anywhere really. Amazon, eBay, they're not that expensive, but you will snap them. Trust me, you will snap them. So we've got some Rocket Rapid here. We've got some black wire. We have a dab of CA glue. So Deluxe Materials yellow. Pop it in place. Cut it with a little bit extra. And there we go. 4 ignition leads ready to go. They then need attaching to our distributor. So a couple of dabs of CA glue. We've cut the ignition lead roughly to size. Obviously the further away the lead is, the longer it's going to be. So a little bit of judgment here. Pop it in place with our tweezers. Bend it away. Move it away from where we want it. And then we need to repeat this for all the other 3. And then move them all over. And the jobs are good. Fiddly, but I think essentially worth it in the end. And there we go. There's the last one. Being a bit stubborn and not wanting to go in place. So we're going to snip it a little bit shorter. Some very nice cutters there, sent from all the way from Florida by my buddy Andy Callis. Hello Andy, if you're watching. It cut the wire absolutely beautiful. And there we go. There's our ignition leads in place. So like I said, I saw reference pictures of this. So what I've done is drilled out 4 holes. I've got some resin, hose connectors, electrical connectors, whatever you want to call them, in place. We're dry fitting them, make sure they look okay. We've got the same gauge wire as before. Here's the connectors before they're cut off. They're just on a block. We're using the same side cutters to cut these off. They are very, very small and fiddly. So just grab it, a little dab of CA glue, line it up, drop it in place, push it home. We've drilled out the top of this as well to put these in, and then we grab a little bit of CA glue on our wire. I actually found it easy to take them out, put the wiring on. Once we're happy that it's in place, a little bit of activator as well. Touch it in to dry it, and then pop it into the hole. I just repeat that for the other 4. Now I'm kind of using a bit of my own interpretation here, because not a lot of these engines have this. I just thought it looked interesting, and I'll be honest, I've got absolutely no idea what they are. I don't know if they're hoses, I don't know if they're wiring, I have no idea, and to be honest, I don't really care. I just saw it, thought it looked pretty cool, I wanted to add a bit of detail. Now we've got some Santador odorless mineral spirits on a cotton bud, removing all that excess wash from the back. You'll kind of find with the washes, once you remove it, you'll spot a little bit more at a later date. So don't be worrying, just remove it as you go. I decided these were hose connectors, so I've got some clear blue over the silver. They have been hand painted silver. And we've got some clear blue over the top. Excuse my light being in shot, I thought I was zoomed in a bit more. Obviously I wasn't. But it's only a short segment of video. And we're just literally brush painting the LP. Ooh, let me see, 68 it is. LP 68. Whenever I have to pick an LP colour, I have to look at my paint rack, so give me a second when I do that. Now, some spring detail for the suspension. We've coloured the silver in by brush painting it. Now we've got our Edin 400 gloss black marker pen. I'm just going to run that over and just add a little bit of a gloss black look to the springs. Again, slight difference in colour, a little bit of tonal variation. Adds a bit of interest. It's a quick way of doing it. You could brush paint gloss paint should you wish. You could spray gloss paint. I just thought, offhand, it was just a quick, easy way of doing it. So there we go. Let that dry. Repeat for the other side. And that's ready to go as well. We've got some assembly of the chassis now. We've got the radiator intercooler at the front suspension struts are in, all the hubs are in place as well. We've got the rear section now with our suspension. Read the instructions carefully here. It is quite easy to muck this up, but there's our carefully painted shock and spring assembly that we took forever masking. So they're all ready to go. They're in place. We've got a couple of dabs of Perfect Pen CA glue. And then our engine is popped in place, like so. And we can leave that to one side. And it's about 20 seconds from now, it dawns on me, I shouldn't have glued those drive shafts on, because how on earth am I going to get them in there? So we took them off. We took the hub back off, we glued in place. We glued the gearbox down. We popped the drive shafts back through and glued them in place. And then we popped the hub back on, like so. Luckily these parts are very, very positive locator points, and even though they were CA glued, they popped straight back off, and we can just check fitment like so. A little bit of CA glue again, line everything up, and get our suspension components and drivetrain all back together. So yeah, follow your instructions is the key here. Couple of dabs to the Loctite Perfect Pen CA glue for our brake discs. Now these are handed and front and rear, so make sure you got the right ones. They only tend to fit in place if they're orientated the right way. So it's a case of just read your instructions, double check. I do like the CA glue in the pen. It's very handy. It's a nice consistency. It's not as thick as some of the gels, but it's a bit thinner than some of the other glues out there. It's perfect for me. Hence why I call it the perfect pen by accident quite often. So a couple of dabs, in it goes. Line up our brake caliper, get our poly cap in as well. Don't forget these are important. The amount of times I've left one of these out on a build, yeah, is silly. It's easily done, so just make sure you pop them in place before you glue anything home. Otherwise you're going to have a bit of bother with your wheels maybe falling off or not quite locating as positive. We've got the pan underneath to go in place as well. So again, a couple of carefully placed dabs of CA glue. Turn it round, get it the right way, get it roughly lined up, and then give it a wiggle round to find the locator points. And there we go, that's that done. Chassis, now big step now, we can get the chassis and interior mated up. So this carefully slots in from the back to the front. Line it up, push it home, be careful don't do that to the screen like I just did. So that was glued in place again. And then we line up our roll cage sections front and rear. And there we go, this is starting to come alive now, it's starting to look really nice. Happy with it. Again, the time taken to detail everything up is well worth spent. I do have some more detail to add to the engine. There's a few more hoses and braided lines to pop in there, but we'll look at those in the next part, because this has already gone on for long enough today. There was nearly 8 hours of footage to edit today, filmed over a week. A lot of work to do. Tyres. Now, I'm quite lazy sometimes, well most of the time, and do not remove the seam on the tyres. It's a bad habit. Because the panel is going to be removable on this, I think it's an important step to do. So I'm just going to throw that around the bench a bit, and then we'll pick it up. There we go, move it out of the way. I've got a habit of throwing UMP sanders round, I don't know why. So we've got our 240 sponge here, and we're going to remove our seam from around the edge. Now, it's boring. It's an utterly boring job to do, and it seems never ending. These sanders, especially this one, makes this a real short job to do. So take the time, it's well worth spent, and not only that, it adds wear to the tyre. It does look a lot better. And again, trying to better myself, this is something I'm going to do from now on. So if you see a model of mine where I've not done this, say, oi, Paul, pull your finger out and get the seams removed. I do need to start spending time doing things like this to add more detail. So we'll go around, remove 90% of that seam. You can see it new to old there. There's still ever such a slight seam left in the middle. So the sponge has got rid of most of it. It's roughed up the tyre. So now we come with our 240 thinny stick with a thin end right in the centre to take care of that seam fully. So again, just keep turning it as you go, step by step, until the seam's gone. Repeat that on all 4 tyres. Clean them up. I like to blow them, give them a wipe off, and then I'll put a bit of UMP airbrush cleaner on a bit of tissue and just gently wipe it over to remove all the rubber residue. We've got LP4 Tamiya LP. It's flat white because our PE set comes with a very nice Pirelli mask, PE mask, to spray the tyre sponsorship. We're going to thin this with the lacquer thinner, non-retarder, with no retarder in this. We want this to dry flat. Mix it up with our Badger paint mixer, and we're going to thin it about 70%, 60-70%, probably a little bit less with the white to be honest, probably more like 60. I'm doing it by eye. I always do it by eye. Once you've done this enough, you'll get to know how much thin paint to add. So we're going to carefully line up this Pirelli marker. We've got some masking tape over the top. It is tricky to line up. It took me several goes. The beautiful thing is, if you use the lacquer thinner we used to thin the paint, you can wipe it all off and start again. So the first one, I got near enough perfect, and then it went downhill from there. And I had to remove the paint a couple of times to get it to line up. The problem is, as the Pirelli marking gets sprayed white, it gets harder to see the tyre through it. So I find myself having to wipe the mask clean as well to get it to line up. But after a bit of mucking about, we got it right. You can see me test spraying on my thumb because we don't want to hose the paint on. We don't want it to run inside. And as I say, the first one, pretty much bang on. Happy with that. It looks good. And that's it. And what we'll do here is pretend all the others went like that. And this is where we came to. So they're dried now as well. We pop them on our tyre. Our wheels, sorry. Pop the tyres on the wheels. As you can see, we've got a little bit of overspray there, a little bit of white. So once we pop it on, we've done both sides as well. So pop it in place. If you see any excess white paint, we can get a cotton bud with some of the thinner on just to remove it. I'm double checking for any extra paint that we don't want. And we pop it fully home, and there we go. They look very good. Happy with those. Definitely look better than the old decals. Nice touch, really nice touch. So we've got to get these in place. So the polycaps, this is where the polycaps come into play. These will hold the wheels on and allow them to spin. So you need a little bit of careful manipulation to get these in. As you can see, I've just spotted a little bit of white paint. So we'll grab some, I think this is must all be level and thinner. Or you can use the Tamiya lacquer thinner as well, as shown on screen. And just load up a cotton bud a little bit and just gently wipe over, and you'll watch. Ready, ready, ready. There it goes, it's gone. Perfect. And just let it dry, it will evaporate, no bother at all. Just stay away from your wheel, don't want to touch that. And we'll just clean up any overspray or excess white we don't want. But like I say, putting these wheels on, they need to be very carefully manipulated into place. It's very easy to snap things here, so don't go in all ham-fisted. Give a little bit of positive pressure pushing forward and just do that turn. And it will slot on. There you go. Happy with that. Again, we've got a little bit of excess paint, so we'll just wipe it off there and there. And then the front tends to be a little more tricky than the back because you've got the steering mechanism. And again, some of these will literally push on really easy. Others you're going to have to wrestle with a little bit. But just persevere. And there we go. We're coming for a little look. So the wheels and tyres look really good. Happy with those. Our interior looks okay. Kevlar looks good. We've got the inner part of the door to do as well. Engine's not looking bad at all. We've got a little bit of white there we'll remove in a second. But overall, yeah, I'm happy with this. It's come out quite well. Adding the details definitely added a bit more interest to the model. And of course, me being me, I couldn't resist a bit of a test fit. So we're still going to paint or carbon the interior part of this car, depending on how far I want to go here. Various shots of this car through those door card slots show either being black or the Kevlar material. So I'm not sure which way we're going to go yet. I think for continuity, I think I might decal them in the Kevlar again. It'll only take 5 minutes, nice flat edge. But the body on this is going to be one of the most positive connecting bodies I've known. Those little 4 lugs on the side really get that body on there absolutely perfect. And obviously the front section clips on each side, and there's 2 locating points in the middle, so you need to be really careful here. And that again, slot home absolutely positive as you would like. Then the rear section where we cut, because obviously we cut this should be one piece with the body. We've got our little photo etch tabs we added, so we can line those up, and again pushed in place as I thought it would. It holds it on really, really nice. Now I did have some pictures of this, but I'm not going to spoil it for you. You can wait to see the finished build. We've still got to flat and polish all this body, even though we've got a beautiful shine already. It's a little bit thick in places, but this is looking really sharp now. Once you add a little bit more detail to that engine, I think it's going to really bring it alive. So we're on the finish line now. We've still got a bit more work to do, but we're on the home stretch now, and it's a beautiful scheme. It's a wonderful car, absolutely phenomenal kit from Hasegawa. I'd highly recommend this to anybody. It's a beautiful, beautiful build. Nice detailed engine, nice detailed interior, and I think Hasegawa does about 5 boxings of this, 6 boxings, and they're all really interesting. I've got most of them. I've got multiples of these in the stash. This is the second one I've built. I've still got another 3 in the stash. Got some very nice schemes to do as well. So highly recommended kit. Yeah, so anyone looking to build a model a bit more than a curbside kit. So there we go. I'm going to tease you by showing a few little bits, and then we'll be back in part 4 very, very soon. Sorry, this is part 4. We'll be back for part 5 very, very soon, and get this project all finished. There we go then. Happy how this is turning out now, and as we're getting to the finish line, get a bit more enthusiasm, because I enjoy the start of the build, I enjoy the end of the build. The in-between bits in the middle is where I lose interest, and that's where I don't add the detail to the running gear and the interior. But as I said in this video a few times, I think videoing them, it's slowed me down a bit by a good week, 2 weeks on a build, which is good, because it's then making me take more time on what I'm doing and add more detail. So yes, hopefully that'll continue. And like I've said several times now, my goal this year is to video build everything I build. Whether it can be done, I don't know, but we'll try. We'll see how long it lasts. So this is nearly done now. One more part 5, and we can move on to our next project, which I don't even know what it is yet. I've got so many ideas rattling through my head of what to do. I've got no idea. So as soon as I do, I'll let you all know. But we'll get this finished. We'll do the bench update on it, like I always do afterwards, and then we'll discuss the next build as well. So I hope you liked that today. Got any comments, questions, criticisms, pop them down below in the comments. I do read them all. I'm going to admit I'm having trouble replying to everybody now. There's so many comments. I appreciate them all. Please don't stop giving comments. I appreciate them all. I think it's going to be a case of, unless you ask a question, I'm just going to give you a heart. So look out for the heart and you'll know I've read your comment. I do read everyone, I promise you. And I appreciate every single comment. So please don't stop giving them. If you ask a question, I'll answer you. If not, I'm just going to, I don't know, give a generic thanks for watching like I always have to do. Or just heart the comments. But I've got loads to go through again. I think it's going to be my job after this video uploads today. Because the backlog's so fast. Because the videos are getting a lot more interest lately. I do apologise to everybody who don't reply to. There we go. So the spiel. Let's see. Should we stick a question in here somewhere? Let me have a think. Yeah. Okay, so as always, check out the Hasegawa Model Facebook page and forum, umpretail.com, where you can get a lot of the products I use in all my videos. Check out my Paul ISM Facebook and Instagram page as well. And check out the International Scale Model Group Build page. All these are linked in the description down below, as well as a big long list of all the products I use in my videos. If you see me using something, you should be able to find it in that list. If not, fire away and I'll try and answer as to what it is or where it's from. So the question for the day, let me have a look. If you only build one particular genre, what is one that you would like to try that you've either never done before or a bit daunted on doing? Let's think that. And if you have built everything, you've done all the genres, what is the one you enjoy the most that is furthest away from your favourite one? So if you're an armour builder, do you enjoy sci-fi and so forth? Let me know the answers on those if you can. There we are. Thanks for watching today. I'll catch you on part 5 very, very soon, probably within the next few days. I'm hoping by Wednesday this will all be done. Saturday today. I'll catch you all later. Take care, everybody. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.